Friends, would you believe that a tiny copper coin, the kind people often forget in their pockets, could one day change your life? Yes, in the United States. A Lincoln penny just like this sold at an auction for thousands of dollars. Just a small coin. Yet its value reached nearly $5,000. If you convert that to Pakistani rupees, it's around 1.4 million PKR. And in Indian rupees, it's over 400,000 INR. Think about it. What if such a coin is in your pocket or lying somewhere in an old box? What could happen? Welcome back, friends, to USA Old Coins, the channel where we uncover hidden treasures in ordinary coins. If you love old coins and want to know which coin could make you rich overnight, then subscribe to this channel, like the video, and let us know in the comments which Lincoln penny you own. Because in today's video, we're going to talk about some Lincoln pennies that might look ordinary at first glance. But if they have special errors, rare varieties, or unique mint details, these coins can be worth thousands of dollars. And it's possible one of these coins is already in your pocket right now. So, let's get started and see the first Lincoln penny that has become a hidden treasure for collectors. Let's start with the 2001 Lincoln penny. Friends, this is a coin you've probably seen hundreds of times. It might even be in your pocket right now, or sitting in an old box at home alongside other coins. Most people don't think much of it because it's just a 1-cent coin. And in everyday life, it's considered a small, insignificant amount. But in the world of coin collecting, sometimes this very small coin can become a valuable treasure for collectors. And it's not just because of its age, its condition, rarity, and mint errors are what make it stand out from ordinary coins. In 2001, the United States Mint produced Lincoln pennies in huge quantities. These coins were struck at different mints and circulated in the millions, even tens of millions. That's why, when a regular person looks at one, it seems completely ordinary, with no special value. However, coin experts say that a coin's value isn't determined solely by its quantity. Sometimes, even an ordinary coin can become highly valuable to collectors if it has a special minting detail or a rare error. First, let's talk about the coin's condition. If you have a 2001 Lincoln penny in pristine condition, meaning it shows little to no signs of wear, collectors call it mint state or uncirculated condition. In this state, the coin surface has a distinct red copper shine. This shine indicates that the coin hasn't been heavily used and still retains its original metallic color. Coin collectors highly value these coins because over time, most pennies lose their original copper luster and darken. If a collector finds a 2001 Lincoln penny in perfect condition, they are often willing to pay significantly more than its face value to add it to their collection. But the real excitement comes when the coin has a mint error. A mint error is a mistake that occurs during the coin-making process due to the dies or machines. Normally, the mint ensures coins are produced correctly, but small errors sometimes occur, and these errors can turn a coin into a rare treasure for collectors. One of the most famous errors for the 2001 Lincoln penny is the double die error. A double die error happens when the coin die impresses the design twice. slightly offset. This results in a subtle doubling of letters and numbers on the coin. If you look closely, you might notice a faint double outline in words like liberty or in God we trust. This doubling is not always visible to the naked eye, which is why collectors often use a magnifying glass or microscope to examine the details carefully. A 2001 Lincoln penny with a clear double die error can be worth significantly more than a regular penny, with collectors willing to pay dozens or even hundreds of dollars for it. Another error sometimes found is the off-center strike. An off-center strike occurs when the planchette, the blank metal disc, is not perfectly centered in the press during production. As a result, part of the design shifts to one side, and the coin appears misaligned. Coins with this unusual appearance stand out to collectors, and the more off-center the strike, the rarer and more valuable the coin becomes. Some 2001 Lincoln pennies also have die cracks. A die crack is a fine line that forms when the die used to strike the coin develops a crack due to stress or wear. Coins struck from this cracked die will show the same crack pattern, making each die crack unique. Collectors often seek these coins because noted die cracks are exactly alike. Additionally, there are broad strike errors, where the coin becomes slightly wider than normal because it was struck without a collar. All of these errors, if present on a 2001 Lincoln penny, can make the coin far more valuable than its 1-cent face value. In the collector's market, the price of such coins depends on their rarity, the type of error, and the coin's condition. Sometimes, a seemingly ordinary penny can sell for just a few dollars, or for hundreds of dollars. And that's exactly what makes coin collecting so fascinating. Because even coins that appear ordinary can sometimes hide secrets that turn them into highly valuable collectibles. Now, think about this for a moment. If you have old pennies, or you come across them in your everyday change house, one of them might have a special error or rare detail that makes it worth far more than a regular coin. That's why coin experts always advise, before spending Lincoln pennies, take a close look at them. Sometimes, even a tiny coin can turn out to be an unexpected treasure. Now, let's talk about the 2004 Lincoln penny. Friends, when most people see this coin, it looks completely ordinary, just a small copper coin that millions of Americans use in daily transactions. But in the world of coin collecting, this seemingly simple Lincoln penny can sometimes hold an interesting secret for collectors. In 2004, the United States Mint produced Lincoln pennies in very large quantities. These coins were struck at multiple mints and then circulated all across the country. That's why most people assume this coin could never be valuable. But the reality is different. Coin experts say that a coin's value isn't determined just by how many were made. Its condition, rarity, and possible mint errors also play a major role in its worth. If you have a 2004 Lincoln penny in pristine condition, meaning it has very few scratches or signs of wear, collectors call it a mint state coin. Mint state coins are those that have heavily circulated and still retain their original surfaces, especially if the penny still has its original red copper color and a beautiful shine. Collectors are often willing to pay more than face value to include it in their collection. The really interesting part comes when the coin has a mint error. A mint error is a mistake that occurs during the coin-making process due to the dies or machines. These errors usually occur in very few coins, which makes them particularly sought after by collectors. For the 2000 for Lincoln penny, some collectors have noticed doubling errors. A doubling error happens when the coin die's design is slightly misaligned. As a result, after the coin is struck, the letters or numbers may show a subtle double effect. If you examine such a coin closely, you might see faint doubling on letters in Liberty or the words In God We Trust. This doubling can sometimes be very subtle, so collectors often use a magnifying glass to inspect the details more clearly. A 2000 for Lincoln penny with a clear doubling error can be worth significantly more than a regular penny. Some coins also show die cracks. A die crack occurs when a tiny crack forms in the coin die. When additional coins are struck from the same die, the crack appears on the coin's design as a fine line. Collectors often seek out these coins because each die crack is unique and represents a small piece of minting history. Similarly, some 2000 for Lincoln pennies have off-center strikes. An off-center strike occurs when the coin planchet is not perfectly centered in the press, causing the design to shift slightly to one side. Coins with this unusual appearance stand out from regular pennies, making them especially interesting to collectors. The more off-center the strike, the rarer the coin is considered. Another error occasionally seen is the broad strike error. A broad strike happens when a coin is struck without a collar, causing it to be slightly wider than usual. This error is very rare, so collectors who find such coins often consider them special collectibles. Because of all these possible errors, some 2004 Lincoln pennies can fetch much higher prices than their face value in the collector's market. In some cases, their value can range from a few dollars to dozens or even hundreds of dollars, especially if the coin is in excellent condition and the error is clearly visible. That's why coin experts always recommend taking a close look at Lincoln pennies before spending them. Sometimes, a coin that appears ordinary could actually be a hidden collectible. Now think about this. If you have old pennies or come across them in everyday change, it's possible that one of them has a special error or rare variety that makes it worth far more than a regular coin. And that's exactly why thousands of collectors around the world actively search for Lincoln pennies. Because even in these small coins, secrets sometimes hide that can turn them into an unexpected treasure. The Lincoln penny we're talking about now is the 1993D Lincoln penny. At first glance, it may look like an ordinary coin. Millions of people use it in daily transactions, often spending it without even looking at it. But in the world of coin collecting, this seemingly simple coin can sometimes turn into an interesting and valuable discovery for collectors. The D in 1993D indicates that it was minted at the Denver Mint in the U.S. Coins are produced at different mints, each with its own letter. And coins from the Denver Mint typically carry a D Mint mark. In 1993, The Denver Mint produced Lincoln pennies in very large quantities. So under normal circumstances, this going to rare. However, collectors emphasize that a coin's true value depends on its condition and any possible mint errors. If you have a 1993 Lincoln penny in pristine condition, with minimal scratches or wear, collectors refer to it as a mint state coin, meaning it hasn't been heavily circulated and still retains its original surface. Coins that still preserve their original red copper color are especially prized because over time, most pennies darken and lose their natural shine. If a collector finds a 1993D Lincoln penny in top condition, they are often willing to pay far more than its face value to add it to their collection. The real excitement comes when the coin has a mint error. Mint errors are mistakes that occur during the coin-making process due to the dies or machinery. These errors are usually found in very few coins, which is why collectors actively search for them. Some 1993D Lincoln pennies display doubling errors, which occur when the coin die is slightly misaligned, creating a faint doubling effect along the edges of letters or numbers. On such coins, doubling on the letters in liberty, or the words in God we trust, this doubling can be very light. So collectors often use a magnifying glass to examine the details more clearly. Other 1993D pennies may show die cracks. Fine lines formed when a die develops a crack due to stress. Coins struck from that die will display the same crack, and each die crack is unique, making it a special feature for collectors. Some coins also exhibit off-center strikes, which occur when the planchette isn't perfectly centered during striking, shifting the design slightly to one side. Coins with this unusual appearance are particularly interesting to collectors, and the greater the off-center strike, the rarer the coin is considered. Another error occasionally seen is a broad strike, which happens when the coin is struck without a collar, causing it to be slightly wider than normal. Broad strike errors are rare, making such coins highly collectible. The Lincoln penny we're discussing now is the 1994 Lincoln penny. At first glance, it may look completely ordinary, just a coin that millions of Americans use every day in transactions, often spending it without a second thought. But in the world of coin collecting, even a coin that seems simple can hold special significance for collectors. In 1994, the United States Mint produced Lincoln pennies in large quantities across multiple mints, which is why most people assume this coin isn't particularly rare. However, coin experts emphasize that a coin's true value isn't determined solely by its quantity, but also by its condition, rarity, and possible mint errors. If you have a 1994 Lincoln penny in excellent condition, with minimal scratches or signs of wear, collectors call it a mint state coin. These are coins that haven't been heavily circulated and still retain their original surface. Coins that preserve their original red copper color are especially prized because over time most pennies darken and lose their natural shine. If a collector finds a 1994 Lincoln penny in top condition, they are often willing to pay more than face value to include it in their collection. The most exciting part comes when the coin has a mint error. Mint errors are mistakes that occur during the coin-making process due to the dies or machinery, and they usually appear in only a few coins, which is why collectors actively search for them. Some 1994 Lincoln pennies display doubling errors, which happen when the coin die is slightly misaligned, creating faint doubling along the edges of letters or numbers. On such coins, doubling on the letters in liberty or along the words in God we trust. This doubling is often very light, so collectors typically use a magnifying glass to inspect the details carefully. Other coins may show die cracks, thin lines caused by cracks or stress in the die. Coins struck from that die will carry the same crack, and each die crack is unique, making it a collectible feature. Some 1994 pennies also exhibit off-center strikes, which occur when the planchette isn't perfectly centered during striking, shifting the design slightly to one side. Coins with this unusual appearance stand out from ordinary pennies, and the more off-center the strike, the rarer the coin. Another rare error is the broad strike, which happens when a coin is struck without a collar, causing it to be slightly wider than usual. Broad strike errors are uncommon, so collectors consider such coins special collectibles because of these possible errors. Some 1994 Lincoln pennies can fetch significantly more than their face value, depending on the coin's condition and the visibility of errors. They can sell for a few dollars, dozens, or even hundreds of dollars. And this is exactly what makes coin collecting so fascinating. Even coins that seem ordinary can hide secrets that make them valuable collectibles. The Lincoln penny we're talking about now is the 1995 Lincoln penny. At first glance, it may seem like an ordinary coin, but in the world of coin collecting, pennies from this year have attracted special attention. A big reason for this is the minting variations and errors that appear on some coins. In 1995, the United States Mint produced Lincoln pennies in large quantities across multiple mints, and they circulated widely. That's why, under normal circumstances, these coins aren't considered particularly rare. However, collectors say that a coin's true significance depends on its condition and any special varieties it may have. If you have any 1995 Lincoln penny in excellent condition, with minimal scratches or signs of wear, collectors call it a mint state coin. Mint state coins are those that haven't been heavily circulated and still retain a relatively clean surface. Coins that preserve their original red copper color are especially prized because over time, most pennies darken and lose their natural shine. The real excitement comes when the coin has a mint error. Some 1995 Lincoln pennies show doubling errors, which occur when the coin die is slightly misaligned. As a result, the letters on the coin may show a faint doubling effect. On such coins, doubling on the letters in liberty or along the words in God we trust. This doubling can be very light, so collectors often use a magnifying glass to examine the details closely. Other 1995 pennies may display die cracks, fine lines caused by cracks or stress in the die. Coins struck from that die will show the crack on the design, and each die crack is unique, which makes it interesting to collectors. Some coins also exhibit off-center strikes, which occur when the planchette isn't perfectly centered in the press, causing the design to shift slightly. Coins with this unusual appearance stand out from ordinary pennies and are more interesting to collectors because of these possible errors. Some 1995 Lincoln pennies can fetch significantly more than their face value, depending on the coin's condition and the visibility of errors. Their market value can range from a few dollars to dozens of dollars. And this is exactly why thousands of collectors around the world actively search for Lincoln pennies, because sometimes even a tiny coin can turn out to be a hidden treasure. Friends, the world of Lincoln pennies is truly fascinating. A coin that seems to be worth just 1 cent can sometimes fetch an astonishing price in the collector's market. That's why if you have old pennies, it's always worth taking a close look before spending them. You never know. One of them might turn out to be a valuable collectible. If you enjoy stories like these about coins, be sure to subscribe to the USA Old Coins channel. And in the comments below, let us know, do you have any rare coins of your own? Don't forget to like and share this video so more people can discover the amazing world of coins. We'll be back soon with another fascinating and surprising coin story. Thanks for watching USA Old Coins.